Breaking news. After Trump attends a rally in Wisconsin, Kamala Harris's campaign clipped a part of the speech, manipulated it to say that he's going to take away women's rights. Take a look.
They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. 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 I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, from insane asylums and mental institutions all over the world, from Venezuela to the Congo, including savage criminals who assault, rape, and murder our women and girls. Anyone who would let monsters kidnap and kill our children does not belong anywhere near the Oval Office. And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. I said, why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say, pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect.
After hearing the entire clip, you understand the context of what Donald Trump was talking about. Now, you would think that Kamala Harris's team has enough people to fact check these things, right? But we've seen this throughout their campaign. They're all about controversy, and they really hate context. Here's what the vice president had to say about Trump's statement. Watch.
And remember how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. And now in America, 1 in 3 women lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, many with no exceptions, even for rape and incest, which is immoral. And Donald Trump's not done. Did everyone hear what he just said yesterday? That he will do what he wants, quote, and here's where I'm going to quote, whether the women like it or not. And we must vote, because this is the thing. You know, there's a saying that you got to listen to people when they tell you who they are. And this is not the first time he has told us who he is. He does not believe women should have the agency and authority to make decisions about their own bodies.
Did you notice that she took Trump's message and twisted it to whatever they wanted? Because he was talking about the border that she and President Biden opened up. But she's not going to talk about that. All she needed was a few seconds of Trump's speech, which is kind of odd for a vice president to do this, given that she's literally lying to our faces. This is clearly risky for her presidential hopes, but it's also clear that she's desperate. This also says a lot about her character. And we all know that it's not the first time that she's tried this nonsense. Remember when she kept pushing that bloodbath comment on Donald Trump during their debate? But now she's targeting women who may not have all the information at their hand. Because if we ignore this other part of his speech, it really sounds suspicious. The problem for her team, though, is that the entire clip is available online. It's all over X at the moment because users are calling out Kamala Harris for lying again. As the VP, it would be expected that she at least apologize for misleading people with her misinformation. But that's not how she rolls. She really sticks to her talking points, whether they're true or not.
I will comment on the former president Donald Trump's remark about women and whether they like it or not. And listen, it actually is, I think, very offensive to women in terms of not understanding their agency, their authority, their right, and their ability to make decisions about their own lives, including their own bodies. And this is just the latest on a series of reveals by the former president of how he thinks about women.
You see how they overreact about a misquote? They know that they're not quoting him correctly, but they're going to town with it. Meanwhile, they call Donald Trump Hitler and his supporters are garbage, and we're supposed to be okay with all that. The double standard is ridiculous. The hypocrisy is crazy. But here's something that's funny, guys. Rachel Maddow recently went on The View to answer a few questions. Sorry, I meant to say Mark Cuban. I get them confused sometimes. So Mark Cuban's taking notes from President Joe Biden. Just like how the president attacked half the country with his garbage remark, Cuban is now attacking women who want to vote for Trump. Watch.
Mark, let me ask you, because I know you were a Nikki Haley supporter like I was in the primary, but now you're supporting Kamala Harris. And turns out Donald Trump is not even asking Nikki Haley for her help to try to reach her voters. What do you make of that? And do you think having people like Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and other Republicans with Kamala Harris is going to put her over the edge with these Nikki Haley supporters?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it'll put her over the edge with Nikki Haley supporters. Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple. They're intimidating to him. He doesn't like to be challenged by them. And
I think somebody needs to ask Mark how he defines strong, intelligent women, because I'm pretty sure that it's extremely simple to find strong and intelligent women around the former president. Because much like what Biden did, Cuban has singled out an entire demographic of Trump supporters. Now, I'm not sure if they're working against Kamala Harris at this point, but they may as well be, because I would like to see him have a debate against either Tulsi Gabbard or even Alina Gaba. And this is just tip of the iceberg, guys. Let's hear from RNC co-chair Lara Trump, another strong, intelligent woman who is helping Donald Trump in this run. Watch.
Mark Cuban. Yeah, it's almost as though they're trying to sink their campaign totally. First, Joe Biden, of course, called us all garbage. And then Mark Cuban came in just to take anybody left standing out and say that all the women who support Donald Trump, who again, want safe communities, want a great future for their children, want a secure border, want more money in their pockets. We all apparently have no intellect whatsoever. We're weak. It's ridiculous. Obviously, it's very insulting. I'll just go ahead and utilize myself as an example. I'm the co-chair of the party, and I can tell you that he and I have many conversations about a multitude of different issues, and he always wants my input. It is obviously such an insulting thing for Mark Cuban to say, but it actually goes to show he has no idea what it is about Donald Trump that people love. We love him because he tells the truth. We love him because he continues to fight for us, and we love him because we've seen 4 years with Donald Trump in the White House. We want that back. And I'll tell you what, the smart, strong women are going to be voting for Donald Trump this election.
But of course, the truth will go over the heads of guys like Mark Cuban. He's now at the point of no return, so it's normal to hear stuff like this from him. The same way we can expect it from politicians like Hillary Clinton.
So, look, just 28% of Americans, voters, think the country is going in the right direction, is on the right track. And I want you to put that into a historical perspective for you. Okay, what's the average percentage of the public that thinks that the country is on the right track when the incumbent party loses? It's 25%. That 25% looks an awful bit like that 28% up there. It doesn't look anything like this 42% doesn't look anything like this 28%. So the bottom line is, very few Americans think the country is on the right track at this particular point. It tracks much more with when the incumbent party loses than with it wins. In fact, I went back through history. There isn't a single time in which 28% of the American public thinks the country is going on the right track in which the incumbent party actually won. They always lose when just 28% of the country believes that the country is on the right track.
He's saying that it's an inevitability. Trump is poised to win this race, and there's not much that can be done to prevent it. The Biden-Harris administration has just screwed up too many lives for Americans to just sit back and take all of it. In fact, it's obvious when you look at how the swing states are reacting here. So Donald Trump's run has now brought forth historic numbers for the Republican Party, especially if we're talking about registration of voters. Watch.
Okay, registration numbers, Eric.
Yeah, Republicans have been registering voters in big, huge numbers. They have been gaining in party registration versus the Democrats in the swing states with party registration. We're talking Arizona. I think it's a 5-point. They've expanded their lead from 5 points from where it was back in 2020. How about Nevada? Big Republican registrations there. They like the early vote. How about North Carolina? Big Republican registration gains. How about Pennsylvania? We spoke about it before a few months ago. Big Republican Party registration gains versus from where they were 4 years ago. So Republicans are putting more Republicans in the electorate. The Democratic number versus the Republican number has shrunk. And so the bottom line is, if Republicans win, come next week, Donald Trump comes next week, the signs all along will have been obvious. We would look at the right direction being very low, Joe Biden's approval rating being very low, and Republicans really registering numbers. You can't say you weren't warned.
For a news outlet that wants to appear centric, they sure do know their way with words. Because for them to say that Americans are being warned about a possible Trump presidency is just precious. They're supposed to be unbiased, but that's not what's happening here, which shows that they're ticked off about Trump's numbers. They also don't like how Republicans are now coming out early to support the former president. And right after this, they talked about how scary it would be to have Trump as president again. And adding to their fear is the fact that the polls continue to put Trump ahead of Kamala. A recent Rasmussen Reports poll shows that the former president leads the incumbent vice president in Georgia 51 to 46%. The battleground state could greatly affect this year's presidential election, guys. And this wouldn't be the first time either. But Trump's lead also falls outside the margin of error, which is 3 percentage points. Now, Georgia is a must-win for Trump this year, especially since he lost it to Biden by 0.3% in 2020. 538, a polling analysis site, says that Trump has a 64% chance of securing Georgia's 16 electoral votes. Tell you what, guys, he's already got mine. It's now at a point that even CNN's Jake Tapper is citing the obvious. Even he can't deny the truth that Trump is wildly popular with voters and can fill huge arenas without the need of celebrities or musicians. Watch.
This largely issues-focused messaging from Trump's 2024 campaign operation is one of the reasons why this race is so competitive. A professional campaign appeals to a multiracial coalition focusing on issues where Trump polls better than Harris, immigration, the economy. And we saw some evidence of a political realignment with the very fact that yesterday Trump was able to fill the 20,000 or so seats at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan for his campaign rally. It's a feat that likely no other Republican presidential candidate would have been able to pull off.
Joy in her campaign is all gone now. Now, if you compared it to just a couple of weeks ago where every rally was a cackle fest, these days she's getting booed in her own rallies multiple times. This is something that mainstream media is completely aware of, and it's probably why she's getting asked these tough questions instead of all the softball ones that she used to get.
What's your message to Michigan voters in terms of the economy? We have auto workers who are being laid off and those who fear that they might be laid off. The average person can't afford groceries or their rent. And recent polls in Michigan show that Michigan voters believe that Donald Trump would do a better job with handling the economy and bringing jobs back. What do you say to that?
Well, let's start with this. I come from the middle class, and I'll never forget where I come from. My mother worked very hard. She, by the time I was a teenager, was able to save up for our first home.
Can somebody please tell her aides to give her a different script about the economy? I mean, she always goes back to the exact same story every single time. A story that actually doesn't make much sense because she actually doesn't understand the struggles and hardships of Americans. And speaking of not making any sense, guys, the vice president recently delivered a speech in Washington, D.C. As expected, she talked more about Donald Trump than she did about the American people. Many believe that this is more than just TDS. This is legitimate obsession. They're all out of answers, and the only way to recover from these polls is to try and drag Donald Trump down, relying on talking points based on statements taken out of context. Watch.
Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are.
Now, I covered this in a previous video, guys, where he called Trump supporters as Nazis. It sounds like I'm joking here, but I actually have the footage to prove it. Make sure you guys watch that video after this one. But as always, appreciate you guys hitting the like button and subscribing. I want you guys to watch this video next. It's an amazing video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.